Welcome to the Black Appalachian Coalition's podcast entitled Black Remembering, where we will bring to you the heavy and the hope across the Ohio River Valley. We want to remember who we are, where we've come from. We want to speak to the oral history of what we've done, what we've achieved. We want to speak to the ills that we have experienced while also finding solutions to those problems, those issues. We want to deal with the narrative that has kept us deeply rooted in despair. Now we want to punch through that narrative and stand up and say, we are remembering our Black past, and we are rooted, and we are here to stay. Welcome to Black Remembering. We hope that you find your place, your space, and your voice in this podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Robert Lewis Hunter. I'm with the Black Remembrance podcast. I'm here also with the lovely Nina Morgan. Today, we're here to talk about specifically environmental organizing and why it's important. Hi, Nina. How have you been?
Hey, I've been okay. Making black beans and trying to experiment with this new recipe. So using some sassafras leaves and some other stuff that I just picked outside. So I'm doing okay. Doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I am in Texas helping out a friend with a festival. Although by the time this airs, that will be weeks ago. But it's pretty nice. Hopefully I'm going to be able to see centers before I leave out. But I hear pretty decent things about it.
Yeah, I definitely want to go see it.
If you don't mind me asking,
yeah.
What got you involved in environmental organizing?
I feel like I've always been conscious of the importance of our environment, how we benefit from our environment, the importance of protecting our environment. And I definitely get those values from my parents, both my mom and my dad, but particularly my mom. She's definitely like a person who some might call a tree hugger. She's just very into trees. She feels like the environment isn't something out there, that we are very much part of it. And as humans that have such a big impact, have a specific responsibility. So I'll say like my foundation definitely comes from like my foundational values come from my parents. You know, my aunt has this running joke where she, whenever kind of like the topic of conversation turns to, you know, the organizing that I used to do in North Birmingham, she always kind of jokes about how she finds it funny that I ended up doing that kind of environmental justice organizing in that area with basically no help. And I think my family is really proud of me because of the way that they were impacted by living in a polluted area. So I grew up hearing stories about how my family members on both sides, but my dad's side in particular, were impacted by industry, worked in industry. And yeah, I think like a lot of like kind of a mix of those things that were supplemented by the time that I spent taking classes in environmental science as a student, when I was pursuing my bachelor's degree and working as an intern with our Office of Sustainability at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, UAB for short. I think all of that kind of together kind of influenced me to get involved in environmental work and environmental organizing in particular.
And that does make sense in a lot of cases. Some people don't have to notice the air they breathe, the water they drink tastes funny, which I think is sad, but some people are very self-centered around their comfort, which is detrimental because the first tenet of white supremacy is quite literally you never have to sacrifice your comfort for the need of others. They should bend to you.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is like you talk about people kind of considering what their water and the things that they put in their body like taste like and smell like, things that we see as like just basic. And when it comes to air, one thing that I encountered a lot organizing is how people just get used to bad air to the point where they actually don't smell it anymore. Like they don't smell the pollution. And on the other side of that, for someone who maybe like didn't live, close to polluting facilities, someone like me who actually didn't really grow up with the polluting industry across the street, I'll say. It was very apparent, driving on the north side and just being on the north side, the way that the air quality was, in comparison to the rest of Birmingham. But, things get normalized and it just becomes kind of the ground that you walk on, and you don't really think about it until you start asking more questions and you get more exposure to information. So, yeah, it's interesting to think about for sure.
I also think it's important to understand sometimes the line can be blurred because infrastructure is just better in some areas. It's one of those situations, just like the education system. A lot of it, particularly, is funded through sales tax and other taxes, or even property tax, in areas that supplementally were screwed the moment that there was white flight.
Yeah.
Tell me more about GASP.
GASP, GASP, it stands for the Greater Birmingham Alliance to Stop Pollution. And their overall mission is just to advance clean and healthy air and environmental justice and climate justice in the Greater Birmingham region through different means like, legal means, education, advocacy, and collaboration. And so, and I don't work at GASP anymore. I worked there from 2019 to the fall of 2023. I hope I'm getting those dates right. But yeah, small nonprofit, environmental nonprofit that focuses on clean air. And something that one of my old coworkers used to say a lot is, everybody should have clean air, regardless of zip code, regardless of income, regardless of race, and all those other factors. And so it's been around since 2012. So a little over 10 years old. And my good friend, Jaleesa Milton, actually, shout out to her because she is the executive director at GASP now, and just doing some really amazing work to keep the mission alive and really fight for change. So yeah, that's GASP in a nutshell. And so I used to work, I don't know if this is helpful context, but when I worked there, I was their climate and environmental justice organizer. And I was the first organizer that they had ever hired that was kind of tasked with building out their organizing programming. And I would say organizing work was definitely happening before my time at GASP, even if it wasn't called that. But I kind of came in as this change agent to kind of like really deepen that side of the work and formalize it. And so I did a lot of intensive work in North Birmingham, what they call the 35th Avenue Superfund site, which is really a textbook case of structural and environmental racism. I mean, you talk about redlining, there's like the old the old zoning maps that definitely codify in the environmental racism that led to Black neighborhoods specifically being regulated and to being in heavy industry areas and not really getting a lot of investment in those areas. And so, yeah, you have folks who have and continue to pass away from things like cancer, people who have COPD, people who have, all these breathing problems, people who have rare forms of cancer too, childhood cancer, asthma, you name it, they have it. And at the same time, North Birmingham is part of the civil rights movement. There's a really deep and rich legacy of civil rights work in that community, specifically in the Collegeville neighborhood. So the Superfund site is comprised of 3 neighborhoods: Collegeville, Fairmont, and Harriman Park. And Collegeville is the birthplace of Reverend Shuttlesworth, who worked alongside Dr. Martin Luther King in the 60s. And so there are people who are living there who have who were foot soldiers. There's a plaque in Collegeville where it says, like, Collegeville, the birthplace of the civil rights movement. And it's kind of poetic in a sense, because this plaque is like right next to a storm drain on the side of like this bridge where no one can really see it. And I think it's symbolic for the state of the community, where it is this like really rich like heritage area for historic work that has changed the world. And yet the city hasn't done as much as they could to advocate on behalf of and support people who have had to deal with this century-long legacy of industrial pollutants. So yeah, that was the work that I did. My dad's side of the family is also from Collegeville. So Collegeville is the home of my dad. And so I grew up it was interesting, like, from being this person who like heard the stories of all of these things, but then like fresh out of college getting this job where I'm actually coming face to face with some of the things that, my ancestors and my dad himself and his sisters and cousins, like, it grew up like experiencing these things. And so it was really this like poignant opportunity, experience for me to like connect these dots from like the work that I was being paid to do to my own life. And yeah, like, even though I don't work as an organizer there anymore, it's work that is I still feel is very much important. And I try to volunteer as I can and show up as I can. And so in GASP, I will say, to the question, GASP is one of the few nonprofits in the state of Alabama that are purely dedicated to watchdogging polluting industries, making sure they're not violating environmental laws like the Clean Air Act, and working at the grassroots level with people who are directly impacted by the very industries that they seek to hold accountable. And so that is a gift, organizations like GASP. There's another organization down in Mobile that does similar work. And so, the people there, and it's thankless work too sometimes. It's hard work and sometimes thankless. And so we're really lucky to have them around.
I agree. We honestly need more in a lot of areas, because even some particularly less known areas, there have been issues. It's not a coincidence that I can go down one street in my city and find everyone on that whole street caught cancer.
Yeah.
Not a coincidence where allegedly more than 5, 6, 10 miles away from any pollutant site, when I go and knock on community doors asking about other things, I still find multiple people saying, oh yeah, I've had asthma and breathing issues. My whole family's had it. Even myself, I'm going to have to get a CPAP machine pretty soon. On top of, I find it not a coincidence that most of the men in my family and in the surrounding area have had to get some form of asthma related treatment or CPAP machines. There's an underlying correlation around environmental issues, especially when also mysteriously the same red lines that make the difference between you living in a rich and poor area are the same lines that cut across your so-called representation.
Yeah, and like just the discriminatory practice of redlining that didn't allow a lot of financial services, financial loans, or even like just investment in these communities. It also contributes to indoor air pollution, right? Because like if you can't get the bank to finance a loan to, like apply updates to your house, you still have this old lead paint, this asbestos, in these old materials that were used to build your house originally, right? Like it all kind of comes together in this nexus of like, what do they call it? The social determinants of health. And so it's like this triple factor where it's like, okay, the air is bad. Okay, the soil might be bad too. Okay, like because of environmental racism and redlining and things, like the house is falling apart. It has all these like bad, like unhealthy materials that it's built with, but you can't get financing to actually get upgrades done to your home. So you're kind of stuck. Even the people who can, for whatever reasons, because we have people on the north side who have beautiful homes, right? Like that's one thing. Mr. Charlie Powell, who, and I would be remiss not to bring up PANIC, which stands for People Against Neighborhood Industrial Contamination, and that organization was founded and headed up by Mr. Charlie Powell, who is from the community in Fairmont. And so, you know, he one of the things that he talks about is how like we're not like we don't want to just be labeled as like this poor community where people, you know, just have these meager living is and all of this. Like, you know, there are people there who have gorgeous homes that they've like taken a lot of time on and what have you, but like because of racism, their homes aren't worth what they should be. You know, like the resale value is pennies on the dollar compared to what their homes would be worth if they were in like a wider, wealthier side of town. So it's just like all of these conflating factors that like make it really hard.
Right. On that note, do you have any suggestions of what our listeners can do or organizations they can get involved in specifically if they want to see changes in and around their environment, be it watchdogs or advocacy or direct action?
Yeah. I think in terms of what to do is really to do kind of like a scan of the things. Like if you're interested in stuff like this, I think one of the best things that somebody can do is just become aware of what's around you, right? Like get on Google Maps, you know, zoom out, see, actually, are there any industries around me that might be impacting my health or my neighbor's health or my family's health or yada yada? Like, kind of like one just solid way to start is just becoming aware of your environment and your immediate surroundings and kind of get curious about some of the things that you may have taken for granted. Because I know for me, like the way that I started at GASP was that I started as a volunteer because I was interested in the work that they were doing and I got connected. I think I met someone through like some other work that I was doing when I was a student. And then from there, like, you know, participated to the point where I was a part of their junior board. And then from there, you know, I was so like active that when they had a position kind of open up, they asked me if I wanted to apply. They encouraged me to apply and I got the job. And in that time, I increasingly became aware of my environment. Like before, of course, I thought clean air, important thing, but like we just take it for granted, you know? And the work that I did for GAFS completely changed the way that I look at our sky, the way that I look at my surroundings, the way that I look at a horizon and I see that inversion line and I'm like, the air quality sucks today, you know, like in the ways that I understand the real world impacts that it has. And so I would just say like get aware. And I think kind of what I said in terms of my journey, even getting involved in gas is a model for what people can do. So like volunteer, like find, it doesn't have to be air. It could be water. It could be soil. It could be, you know, rocks, whatever it is, like just find an organization. If you're interested in the environment, find an organization that whose mission resonates with you, you know, start volunteering with them, see if like that's a place that you actually want to spend more of your time at helping and see where it goes. It could lead to a job in the future, right? Like it could lead to an opportunity to really enhance your leadership. And there's plenty of environmental organizations around. There needs to be more air organizations. Like there's not enough clean air organizations in Alabama. Alabama is a pretty large state and gas can't do just like all the work, you know? But yeah, GASP, the Mobile Environmental Justice Action Committee, MEJAC for short, definitely like the waterkeeper organizations, whether it's Cahaba, whether it's Black Warrior, etc. Yeah, and then there's like hiking groups, people get involved in just to kind of start getting that awareness. There is, I think it's the Alabama Center for Rural Sustainable Solutions, also known as Across, down in Camp Hill, Alabama, with my buddy Warren Titwell. They're doing amazing work, and they do have an environmental and like climate justice lens. Jubilee House, that's out in Walker County. Also, they have like a climate justice kind of environmental focus as well. Smaller organization that could definitely use volunteers. So, and that's just a few for folks who are in Alabama. But even if you're listening and you're not in this state particularly, just just do some research and just show up. The best thing in this, especially in this time where environmental work is under attack in a really scary way, like the most important thing that anyone can do who cares about climate change, who cares about environmental justice, is really get involved and volunteer at these organizations and contribute some of your time. I will also say complain. That's another thing that you can do. Again, and this connects back to developing a sense of awareness. But if you see something, say something. Like if you see somebody burning a mountain of tires across the street from you and you see how it's impacting people who live nearby, call the health department, call whatever environmental regulatory body that kind of, services your area. Because I will say, like, I know some people might roll their eyes when they hear me, but they do listen. And actually, like, it is very helpful to smaller nonprofits that do advocacy work for there to be a record of complaints from everyday people against these facilities. It really does matter when you call and complain, and they are legally required to call you back if they don't answer the first time. So, get loud, start complaining, get aware of what's going on, and then start making some noise, start making some good trouble, and good things will happen behind that.
Right. Well, I'm going to have to cut it here, and hopefully you'll be able to come back at a later date. Thank you again. This is Robert Hunter with Black Remembrance. I hope everyone's going to have a good week. I know I'm going to try my best to. You have a good one, Nina.
Thanks, Rob.